Hey, everybody, welcome into the Sportscaster's Son, where we like to say sports bridges the gap between the generations. I'm your co-host, Peggy Kaczynski, 12-time Emmy Award-winning sportscaster, now at ESPN Radio in Chicago, and the host of the Chicago Bears post-game on ESPN Radio. I'm the baby boomer. Jason, my son, our co-host, collecting a paycheck, working on his own, living on his own.
Saving money.
Yeah, exactly.
Saving money as I should. Well, not really this week. I was in Kansas City last night for the season opener, which was unbelievable. Great experience. Football's back. It's in the air, Mom. This is our 100th episode. So exciting. We've been together doing this show for over 5 years. We're not going to stop anytime soon. And I think that this is actually the first time in our entire time doing the show, we're going into the football season. The Bears are supposed to win some football games because we started this show the spring of my junior year, which was only a couple months after the Cody Parkey kick.
Of high school,
which was only a couple months after the Cody Parkey kick. And so there's only really been 1 year, and it was that next year where the Bears went into the year with the expectation of winning, with the roster that was capable of winning. Of course they didn't, because they've always disappointed in my time watching the team. But now we're here. It's 2024, and the season opens this weekend, and I just couldn't be any more excited about the NFL kicking off, and especially this Bears season.
It's only fitting that this is our 100th episode because, as I said in the introduction, we like to say this is where sports bridges the gap between the generations. And this is a new generation of football at Hallis Hall. 1920 football drive is not your grandfather's Chicago Bears anymore. So many changes, a new team president with Kevin Warren. You have Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles in year 3 of this rebuild. You have 2 new coordinators on both sides of the ball. It's crazy. This, Jason, has so many expectations attached to it because of one name. And that is Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall draft pick that will be stepping onto the field. And what Bears are hoping is finally the franchise quarterback for this team.
He's the Messiah. It's going to be so exciting to watch him take the field on Sunday. I know I'm going to be camped out on my couch the entire day. I have a bunch of friends who have chomped at the bit to buy tickets for this game. Like, I haven't seen anything like this with Bears football since I was at least in high school. And so just the fact that the excitement has been restored is so, like, it's just heartwarming to me. And I hope that the team meets the expectations. I do think that they will. I've been on the record saying that they're going to go 12-5 or 11-6. I really do think that their schedule is so easy, especially in the first half of the season. No one's talking about that. And it's going to give Caleb the perfect opportunity to get settled in. They have a veteran offense around him. Keenan Allen, as long as he stays on the field, is a given 1,200 yards. DJ Moore doesn't look like he's going to slow down anytime soon. And Cole Kmet is really coming into his own at the tight end position. And so I think that this is a Bears team that's set up to succeed in the early part of the season, which is good. Like, we want this excitement going into divisional play, going into that Thanksgiving game in Detroit. Like, we want the excitement to be just as strong as it is now, if not stronger. And I think it will be. The schedule is so advantageous for this team this year, and no one's talking about it.
So the Bears have surrounded Caleb Williams with a lot of veteran talent so that Caleb does not have to put all those expectations on his shoulder. On the defensive side of the ball, though, it seems like Ryan Poles has built this team from the back end. They are very strong in the secondary and very good. They have excellent linebacking core. It's the defensive line that still throws up the question marks. Montez Sweat comes in and tries to rescue a team that had the fewest number of sacks in the NFL last year. But the question going into the regular season remains to be seen as to who is going to be the pass rusher opposite of Montez Sweat. Can DeMarcus Walker get it done? Can Darrell Taylor, their newcomer that they just traded for, can he add some spice to the recipe? We will only know as the season goes on, but we do know this, that Ryan Poles is not afraid to make moves. And if they feel like they have stacked up some wins, but that they are still lacking on a pass rush, you could be sure that he will be trying to make a move as the season goes on.
But like, who would it be? Like, who feasibly are they going to like be shopping at the dollar store for Jadeveon Clowney?
No. Hey, listen, they got Montez Sweat. There's always guys on teams that are facing contract years that are unhappy where they're at. So that's what you do. That's how they, Yannick Ngakoue is still out there. Some people think, hey, maybe if he brought his price tag down a little bit, he would be available. So it's a wait and see. You have to wait and see what becomes available on certain teams.
Really quick, I just want this on the record. He's not going to start this year, but I think Austin Booker, as long as the Bears don't make a trade, he's going to make the most noise off the edge by a Bear not named Montez Sweat. He's not going to start because he's not a 3 or honestly even a 2-down defensive player yet, but he is so explosive and he just brings a completely new element to this defense, new element of excitement, hard-hitting action off the edge. He'll just blow up the quarterback. And so I'm excited to see what Austin Booker does. It's going to be in bursts this year. We know this, but I'm really excited to see what he does. And I know the Bears are high on him.
So I said that this is not your grandfather's Chicago Bears. You could even go back to 20, 30 years. It's not your father's Chicago Bears anymore. It is a new era at 1920 Football Drive. 20 years ago, when Dave McGinnis was Mike Ditka's youngest coach on his coaching staff in 1986, Dave McGinnis had a championship team that was built around guys that stayed with the team forever. There was no free agency. And so now Dave McGinnis serves as the radio analyst for another retooling team, but it's the Tennessee Titans, who the Bears face in week 1. And Coach Mack joins us here on the Sportscaster and Her Son podcast.
So I want to ask you, you're a former NFL head coach. Brian Callahan's going to be coaching in his first NFL game on Sunday. Just kind of take us through those nerves, the mentality, the preparation. You've coached in a million games before that first one as an NFL head coach. So how does it all come together and what does it feel like?
Yeah, you just do. You just go through the process, and of course, all the years that you waited. I mean, it took me, I think, my 14 years before I, became a head coach. But even at a young age, Brian Callahan's been around this for a long time. I mean, as I mentioned, when I got on Dick's staff, I was the 8th coach. They got 28 coaches now. So your ability to enter is a lot different. Your time that you can. But Brian Callahan's been around this league for a long, long time. Of course, having his dad, just living that life has been immeasurable too. But there's always going to be that little bit of going the first time that you do it as the head man. Because when you become a head coach, you get the job and then that door shuts and all the hoopla is over with. And then all of a sudden you realize, all right, now what the hell? And people come knocking on your door. Very seldom as a head coach, if people knock on your door and say, hey, coach, you got a minute, it's not just because they're going to say, we think you're doing a hell of a job. There's always something. So you have to learn how to manage your time and then develop your team. I'm very impressed with him. He's very intentional about the things he does. He's highly, highly organized. And as I said, he does a really nice job of not only handling his coaches individually, but he's very, very hands-on, personal with his players too. I've been very impressed with him. But I've experienced that as a first-time head coach. When you step out there, you're going like, wow, okay, here we go. But you've got to trust your experience.
Tell me about this new head coach, and tell me about the staff that he has put together that includes his dad, a Chicago native. Many people remember his dad very well. What his staff has a lot of experience on it.
Well, that's a credit to him. When he and Rand Carthon, when they were putting this staff together, and of course Rand Carthon is dialed in. He's really connected in this league, as Brian Callahan is. Being able to get his dad was a huge, huge get. I give a lot of credit to the Cleveland Browns for allowing his dad to come here because, I mean, I've been a coach on staffs before where I've had a chance to go other places and have been blocked because I was under contract. He was under contract for Cleveland. But Cleveland understood the dynamics of this situation, the uniqueness of it. So they allowed him to come here. I've been around 2 great offensive line coaches in my coaching career. Dick Stanford at the Chicago Bears, Hall of Famer. Mike Munchak, here with Jeff Fisher and the Titans, Hall of Famer. Bill Callahan, he is in that same group. I mean, and so I spent my whole off season just with him individual. I get to go to every practice. I'm there every day, and I spent the whole time with him watching him technically develop this young offensive line. That was a huge get. The other coaches, as I mentioned, I coach with a lot of these guys on D. He's got a very veteran staff, which for a young head coach is a testament to what his reputation is in the league, being able to attract these veteran coaches in. And he lets them coach. He really empowers his coaches. He's got some really excellent teachers. He's got a good staff.
There's a feeling that you cannot take the Titans lightly. They may be retooling, as you put it, but you can't take them lightly. So how good can this Titans team be?
Again, Peggy, if I could, I don't know. I say this:
Is it as good as Will Levis can be, or?
They've done a nice job of upgrading the talent along the front line. Both you guys know, and your listeners do too, I'm sure, that it's a game of attrition in the National Football League. You need quality depth to be able to survive 17 weeks and still keep your head above water. They still need more depth, but I feel really good about their frontline players. So if they can keep those guys healthy, we'll see. But they've spent a lot of money, and they've done a nice job drafting of getting the roster back to a point as to where it needed to be, because they were fighting salary cap restrictions, for the last couple of years. And then, they missed on some draft picks. So how good can they be? I mean, just as a coach, once they step across that line and you have to stay back, it's up to them. This is different for anybody that's ever followed the Oilers/Titans. It's always been a single-centric offense since the Oilers/Titans, for the last 25 years. Even further than that. I mean, Earl Campbell, Eddie George, C.J. Touquet, Derrick Henry, that has all been single-back centric. This is a completely different offense. It's going to be a different look. So, I'm like you. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to be. But, when I was being recruited in the Southwest Conference in 1970, I went to the first Oilers training camp in Kerrville, Texas, in the Hill Country. They took us down there as a favor for all the Southwest Conference guys that were being recruited. And they've always been, except with Warren Moon, a one back offense. It's not that offense anymore.
So I also want to ask super quick. You're a Horned Frog. I grew up a TCU fan. My dad went to TCU.
Frogs right here. Where's the camera? Frogs, thank you, right there.
Yes, sir. And so I went to the University of Texas, graduated from Austin in May. So I really want to ask you about T'Vondre Sweat, the big nose tackle, big Texas guy. You played in the Southwestern Conference. You have a ton of experience with the big, strong, bulky Texas guys in the trenches. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to see from T'Vondre Sweat on Sunday.
First of all, congratulations on your graduation. That's a milestone. Very cool. Very cool. Look, T. Sweat, of course, he's the Outland winner. When you put the tape on and watch him, you got a guy 366 pounds that can move his feet. Joe Green was my defensive line coach. Mean Joe Green, doesn't like to be called Mean Joe Green, but Joe Green for 8 years at the Cardinals, both when I was a coordinator and a head coach. And when we used to go out during the off season and start looking at collegiate players, especially defensive linemen, he'd say, Coach Mack, you know what we're looking for. We're looking for bears that walk upright on two legs. And that's what Sweat is. This guy is massive, but they got to be able to move their feet. And he can do that. It's going to be very interesting for us. I know from the Titans radio broadcast group to be able to watch and see what T. Sweat with Jeffrey Simmons lined up next to each other on the interior of that defensive line, what they can do. But T. Sweat is a special player, I'm just telling you.
Sorry about that, Coach. Let me go back and
Peggy, this is a professional podcast.
I'm telling you, it's all over the place here with me.
I'm a broadcast guru now, so I know that microphones are helpful.
I want to go back and compare what you were saying about two young quarterbacks. So you have Will Levis in Tennessee, and you have Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams hasn't taken but 20 preseason snaps in the NFL. Will Levis has some game experience already. Where do you see the development of these two quarterbacks, and where is Will Levis now?
Well, Will Levis is greatly improved. And of course, when he was coming out of Kentucky, he had all the arm strength. And his senior year at Kentucky, he played behind a pretty decimated offensive line. So that really does something to you as a quarterback. He played injured too. I mean, he played with a lower body injury half of the season in the SEC, but refused to come out. But he's had more NFL coaching. So if things go like they should, just chronologically, he should be a little more advanced because of the NFL coaching he's had. I know that Brian Callahan and his staff, I mean, they've got 3 quarterback coaches here. They have poured a lot into him since Brian Callahan has been hired here. So that's an advantage. That's an advantage for him. Now, how well it goes as far as when you get into a real life ball game, we'll see. But as I said, you still got both young, developing quarterbacks. Neither quarterback right now is what they're going to be further down on in their career, Peggy. Neither one of them.
So you've had a lot of experience with some Hall of Fame coaches throughout your career, whether it was on Mike Ditka's staff here in Chicago, throughout your own career. You talked about Joe Green being your line coach as well. I'm curious what you think about Matt Eberflus as a fellow linebackers coach, a former linebackers coach. What do you think of Matt Eberflus and the job that he is doing in Chicago?
Well, I think, first of all, he's got a lot of good help around him. And plus, I always, of course, this is my 38th straight season at, 700 games that I've been around. I've been impressed always with his defenses because they're very sound. That's the way he got a head job of sound, efficient defenses. I would expect he's to be that same kind of head coach. And so, And plus, he broke the mold, not the mold, but he broke the trend, because the trend has lately been for a lot of the young offensive coaches to get head coaching jobs. I mean, he was one of the guys that did well enough defensively to be considered, and then get to me, which is one of the premier jobs in the league. I've always been impressed with his defenses because they're sound and they don't beat themselves.
Do you include your 6 hours as the Bears head coach on your resume?
I've been trying. George McCaskey and I are still very good friends, and I love Virginia. I've been trying to get them to put that on, to be able to collect on my pension with that for years. They just said, we love you, Coach Mack, but we can't let you do that.
I love it. Dave McGinnis, it's been so great catching up with you. I really appreciate your time. Like you said, you've been on every radio station in Chicago. You've talked to every writer. It's because everyone still loves you here in Chicago. You spent such a long time here. You were not only a professional, but you were everyone's friend as well. So we thank you so much. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, great being on with you guys. Congratulations. This is a cool thing you guys got going. Hope I see you on Sunday. See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Go Frogs.
It's always so good to see Coach Mack. I mean, Dave McGinnis, he was the best. He had his Texas drawl going all the time when he was coaching on the Bears staff. And Jason, you weren't even born when Dave McGinnis was announced at a press conference, or a press conference, I should say, was scheduled to announce him as the new Bears head coach, replacing Dave Wanstead. And instead, Coach Mack was sitting in his hotel room and he's getting text messages from Mike Singletary and all these guys saying, "Hey, Coach, congratulations. This is great. We're so excited for you." And what happens? They never called him. He never signed the contract. He never agreed to the terms. And so, unfortunately, the late Michael McCaskey had egg on his face because they scheduled the press conference but forgot to actually negotiate the deal with Dave McGinnis. And by the end of the day, he was not the Bears head coach. So for 6 hours, he was sort of the Bears head coach, but great guy nonetheless. Let's get to your predictions. Yeah, I know. Let's get to your predictions, Jason. What do you got?
Mom, we're going to do a little spin on the predictions for today. With the NFL season starting this weekend, I would like to say my player of the year prediction for all three sides of the football for the Bears this year. We're going to start with the offense. This is going to be a total homer pick, but I'm going to go with Caleb Williams as my offensive player of the year. My expectation for him this season, and I have said it before, is to match or exceed what C.J. Stroud did with the Houston Texans last year. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect a borderline generational season out of a borderline generational prospect. And so that's my expectation. I've got Caleb Williams as the offensive rookie of the year. Obviously offensive rookie of the year, but as the Bears offensive player of the year. That's the official prediction here. My defensive player of the year is going to be Jalen Johnson. Got paid this offseason. He has established himself as a surefire top 5 corner in the NFL. I'm going to go with the top 3 cornerback in the NFL. And I think by the end of the year, he will be regarded as the best cornerback in the NFL. When you look at the cornerback position, it is kind of a revolving door. You know, these guys, their tenures at the top don't really, they don't last very long. Think of guys like Darrelle Revis or Josh Norman, who were really, really good for 2 or 3 years. I think that Jalen Johnson's ascent has been a little bit more calculated, and I think that he's ready to take over the NFC, particularly terrorize the NFC North quarterbacks by being the best cornerback in the NFL. And so therefore, he's my defensive player of the year pick.
I like these.
My biggest twist, though, and you're not ready for this one. The Bears have like a really good special teams unit this year. Really good. Like above average, especially by Bears standards. Cairo Santos, about as consistent as it gets at the kicker position. They used a 4th-round pick on Torrey Taylor, but neither of those two are my picks to be special teams player of the year. I'm going with Velus Jones. I think that these new kickoff rules are going to set up Velus Jones to have some explosive plays. He looked great in the preseason. Now, it was basically gun to his head, like you need to run very well and look fresh or else you're going to be cut. And so we saw Velus Jones play some of his best football, but if he looks as sharp as he did in the preseason on those kickoff returns, we're going to get more than one kickoff return touchdown from Velus Jones this year. And any production on top of that is a bonus based on what he's done as a Bear to this point.
Velus Jones has to hang on to the football, and that is just it's that simple for Velus Jones. Hang on to the football with the new kickoff return rules, and that ball is live and it is dangerous. If you muff it, you're in trouble. So that's what I would say. I'm going to add one prediction. I never do a prediction.
Let's do it. Let's hear it.
I'm going to add a prediction. Matt Eberflus is going to get Coach of the Year. He is going to bring this team together. The Bears are going to make the postseason, and he will have gutted out what was a disastrous losing streak from year 1 to year 2, where they started off 0-4 last year amid
they didn't win for 12 months.
Turmoil with the defensive coordinator having to step down, and then another running backs coach having to step down. This was a team in turmoil, and he righted the ship, and the guys did not abandon him. And if they go to the playoffs this year, and he shows that a defensive coach can help develop a quarterback, he will win Coach of the Year. That's my prediction. I'm going to say, Jason, I've said it all along. It was going to be between 8 and 9 wins. I'm going to say 9 wins. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope they hit double digits, but I don't think 10 wins is going to be enough for them to make it to the postseason, not in the NFC North.
Since I can't settle on 11 or 12, I think they're going to win the division. Detroit has the target on their back. Like, when has there ever been a scenario where the Lions have been this much of a favorite to win the NFC North? Like,
No.
everyone's just assuming that it's going to happen. And I think that they're going to run into some problems. The defense is not a finished product. The receiving core is a lot more thin than people like to talk about. And I've never been that sold on Jared Goff. He's been a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I've never been that sold on him. I don't think winning the division's out of picture. I think that the Bears are going to have a home playoff game this year, one way or another.
A home playoff game.
Playoff game. I'm taking it up a notch. Soldier Field in January. It's going to be beautiful.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Our thanks go out to our producer, Jack McGrath at ESPN Chicago, where the audio version of this podcast can be found at the ESPN Chicago app. Jason, if people like this episode.
like, rate, subscribe, do it over again. It always helps us no matter what app or whatever site you do it on. It boosts our ratings, helps the algorithm. YouTube, ESPN Chicago app are the two best ways to get our show. But anywhere you get your audio, you can get the Sportscaster and Her Son.
The ESPN Chicago app is also where you can also find the Chicago Bears radio network. So if you are not in the Chicagoland area, you can still follow our post-game show that I do with Yurko, and a full day of coverage from the pregame show to the call of the game itself to the post-game show. All of that can be found not only on the ESPN Chicago app, but also on YouTube, where you're probably watching us right now. So don't forget, follow us on Twitter at TSAHS Pod. That's the Sportscaster and Her Son Pod, or at Jason Conander, or at ESPN Peggy. That's going to do it for this episode, Jason. Football is on, and the Caleb Williams era begins in Chicago. It's going to be fun.
Da Bears.
Take care, everybody.